What is going on, ladies, gentlemen, listeners of the Didn't Ask podcast? Welcome back to another episode of this right here podcast, the Didn't Ask podcast. How's everybody doing? Did you have a good weekend? I hope you did, because I pretty much did. It was a very easygoing weekend for me. There was no Formula One. There was a UFC fight night, but not a big one with like many big fights. It was a good one though. Rodriguez versus Limoges. It was Rodriguez? Rodriguez? I'm very confused by the pronunciation between like Brazilian Portuguese and then like Mexican Spanish. It's a whole thing, but I don't know with the R's, because I think she is Brazilian, the girl, which means that the R should be pronounced as an H, so it is Rodriguez. It was a pretty good fight in the end though, and there were some fun fights on that card as well with Neil Magny, with Marco Madsen. Some pretty fun fights indeed. I personally was very hyped for Poliana Fiana because she is very cool and very interesting. She's very much a nerd, like a couple of these UFC fighters are now, which is really funny to see because we have, of course, Israel Adesanya, who's fighting in this coming week. He's fighting Saturday. I cannot wait till it's over because I'm fucking scared. Especially, like, I am a big Israel Adesanya fan. I really like what he does, and I really like his fighting style. It's so fucking weird. He's a fucking nerd. Of course, he is known as the last style bender, of course, coming from the last airbender. I'm very much into that. He has a tough tattoo, which that's fucking weird as fuck, and I fucking love it because I really want to get a Kiyoshi tattoo. And that might be a Kiyoshi warrior or actual Kiyoshi herself. So there are so many fucking cool things about Israel Adesanya. But of course, we know that, again, he's a fucking nerd for the name itself. But he's also a big Naruto fan because he has a thing and he has a Deadpool tattoo. He's a fucking nerd. Then we have Megan Anderson, who is a fucking nerd as well, always with the fucking Naruto shit. And Poliana Fiana is very similar to that, where she has like one of the characters' face tattooed on her chest. It's fucking crazy. And she loves Naruto as well. So it was really hyped to see her win with a pretty nice TKO coming from a right hook, and then left, right, and it was done. She only needed I feel 30 seconds, but it probably was like a minute or something like that. So good for her. Congratulations to her, and congratulations to all the other winners on the card, because it was a pretty fun card. Even though it was like a short main event card, it was a pretty nice event, I would say. But that was not the only thing I did this weekend. I also watched the movie Rosalina. Don't know how to pronounce it. It was a very fun movie. It's a movie made by 20th Century Studios. It might even be a Searchlight movie, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But if you're in the Netherlands, or probably somewhere in Europe as well, it's on Disney+, so if you're interested, go and watch it. And to give you a short synopsis of what the movie is about, it's about Rosalina, who is Romeo's first girlfriend, basically, or ex-girlfriend, whatever the fuck you want to look at it. So you have Romeo and Juliet, of course. So it's that Romeo. He is head over heels for this girl called Rosalina, and she is head over heels for him. They've got this thing going. But then when Rosalina's cousin comes and visits the family, Romeo sees the cousin and goes, "Hey, that girl's actually way hotter than Rosalina." And you guessed it, it was Juliet. But then Rosalina finds out and tries to do everything in her power to basically separate Juliet and Romeo. And then the rest is history, as they say. You all know how the story of Romeo and Juliet ends. But it's really fun to see that story play out from the viewpoint of Rosalina. And it's a really fun movie at that. Like, it's not that long. It's pretty long, I guess. It's like an hour, 45 minutes, I think, like total playtime. But it is a really fun flick. Nothing to take that serious. There's like everything is like modernized. So you start the movie with Romeo doing one of his classic poetries, At least that like how William Shakespeare wrote it. So he legitimately goes like, "You're as beautiful as the night is dark and as the moon is bright." And then she legitimately stops him and goes, "Why the fuck are you talking like this? Like, what are we doing here?" And then quickly realize that, oh, this is a different take on Romeo and Juliet. Again, everything is modern, so they talk modern, and there is even like a gay character who they use as like a cloak. It's really fucking funny. So if you're interested in that really fun rom-com, just go watch it. It's really fucking fun. Well, I think that was enough for this intro for this podcast. Let's jump into the first question coming from the Ask Reddit for today. Asked by user puzzleheaded-fic4403, and they ask, which famous person's death made you the saddest? We're getting close to the release of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And just thinking about that makes me really fucking sad that we lost Chadwick Boseman. There are not many black actors in movies nowadays that like are big. Like we have a couple, of course. We have the Denzel Washingtons, the Morgan Freemans. We now have the John David Washington and Yahya Abdul-Mateen. But like we had Chadwick Boseman, who was doing great work as an ambassador for black people, and he was like the first real black superhero that was like, this is the black superhero, right? This is the Black Panther. And he touched so many people's lives with that it was really sad when, first off, like we saw that he was getting worse, like physically, and people were making comments on that on the internet, which was a little bit weird to begin with, but then realizing that, oh, he had stage 4 colon cancer. And that just broke a whole bunch of people, just be like, oh man, what the fuck? And then just realizing that he had that was basically, that came after he died already. Like he died, and then we realized like, oh, he had stage 4 colon cancer, and he was going through cancer treatment while filming these Avenger movies, and he wanted to keep going and keep it secret for everybody else. And just knowing that he had to go through that, through all of this shit, and nobody really knew about it, and nobody was there like to support him apart from, of course, his family. So luckily that was a thing. But like, I think that many people would have, wanted to help him, even though it was probably not possible, but like maybe even emotionally as well, like only. So it's again, and then having Black Panther 2, Wakanda Forever, whatever the fuck you want to call it, having that just at our doorsteps, and knowing how well Chadwick Boseman has done and how he changed people's perception of certain aspects of representation, and how he handled himself really like a king. And the whole black community saw Chadwick Boseman as their king in many ways. Like I myself, like again, I'm getting sad talking about this, so I'm glad that I'm doing this as the first question, because otherwise, I would have just, I don't know. I am very happy that we had Chadwick Boseman in our lives, and that he has touched so many people in such a way that we saw him as the guy. He was the guy for us. He is like well-spoken, great actor, very humble, and just a good human being all around. And again, to lose him, that it sucked. And again, like I said in the beginning, it's so sad that we are now at Black Panther 2, which was supposed to be his like breakout thing, and then him passing. It just really fucking sucks. And I am very excited to see the movie and how they worked his death into the MCU, because of course that is basically what's going to play a big role of this whole movie, right? That Wakanda is mourning for their king. Their king died. And I watched the first Black Panther this past weekend as well. And at that moment, I realized that both the Black Panther movies start with the death of the Black Panther. And that is such a weird happenstance, because of course in the first movie we see, or at least in Captain America Civil War, we see T'Chaka die at like the United Nations like meeting or whatever the fuck it was. And then that carries over into Black Panther, where now T'Challa has to take over the mantle of king because his father died at that attack. And now we have basically a similar thing where, hey, we start this movie with T'Challa dying and somebody else needing to take over the role of Black Panther. So it is such a weird happenstance that is how both of these movies start realistically. And yeah, it's really sad that we have lost Chadwick Boseman, who was such a good advocate for, again, representation and what a black superhero can mean to people, and how he touched so many people's lives. And selfishly as well, I heard after he passed that he was working on a Yasuke movie, which would have been so fucking cool. And if you don't know the story of Yasuke, you should watch the Netflix show. It's an anime. It's really cool. Of course, the Netflix show is an anime, so it's anime as fuck with like demons and whatever the fuck. But like basically, where it comes down to is that there was this. People think that it could have been slave. It could have been like a minister, or like a preach type. Like it could be related to religion. But anyways, they had this guy. They think that his name was Yason, who came from possibly Mozambique, where my family is from, who made his way to Japan, and basically worked his way up through the ranks. And instead of becoming a slave to like the Japanese daimyo, he became a samurai. And that is the story of Yasuke, where he turns out to be one of the best samurai in history and one of the most iconic ones because he was black. And there are so many stories about that, and it's really fucking cool that Netflix made an anime about that. But again, it is very much an anime where it's fighting demons and ghosts and whatever. So having that persona be in a live action movie would have been so fucking cool, and especially if Chadwick Boseman would have done it. But again, he passed away before he could make the movie. I believe there are rumors that there is a movie still coming, but man, I don't know. Chadwick Boseman was it for me. He was the guy to do that. So it's sad that, again, we're not gonna get that, but it's also just sad that Chadwick Boseman isn't here to represent, the black community and to be our king. And yeah, man, I miss that guy still, even though I've never met him. But everything we have heard about him, he seemed like such a solid guy. And it's again said that the best of us leave us so soon. So going back to the question asked by user Puzzleheaded-Fig4403, which famous person's death made you the saddest? And I would say that my answer would be Chadwick Boseman. Again, at the doorstep of Black Panther 2 or Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it really is getting more intense for me, where it's just like, hey, we lost this guy that was the best of us. Like, he was supposed to represent all of us and be our leader, our king, our flag bearer. But sadly, he left us way too soon. So I hope the family is doing okay, especially in this time. And I hope, he's fine where he is. Thank you for your question. Moving on to the second question of the day, coming from the Ask Reddit subreddit, asked by user deleted because they deleted their account. What are you sick of people trying to convince you is great? Okay, we're gonna switch gears now. Really weird switch up, but let's do it. What am I sick of trying people to convince me is great? My answer would be Game of Thrones. Dude, it's such a weird thing for me. Like, I tried Game of Thrones and I've watched the first 2 seasons, I believe, twice, basically, trying to be like, because I tried it years ago when they were on like season 3 or 4, maybe. And people were just like, oh man, Game of Thrones is great, you should watch it. And I am a big fan of like TV shows and I watch a whole bunch of shit. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try it and see where we end up. And then I did it, and then I just couldn't get into it. The fucking TV show starts with fucking incest. And I'm just like, we're okay with this? We have a brother and sister fucking each other and the kid just seeing that and getting thrown out of a fucking window, and we're okay with this? And now especially we're hearing about House of the Dragon. Really had to pull that one out of the bag. And the incest storylines continue. And it's just like there's so much incest and weird shit going on in the world of Game of Thrones that it's just like I am not okay with this. I am totally not okay with this, and I rather skip past it. So going back to the question, what are you sick of people trying to convince you is great? And I would say Game of Thrones. And the funny thing about that is that of course the final season of Game of Thrones itself was fucking shit, and people hated that. So I was like, I dodged a bullet with that one. But now we're doing it again, where House of the Dragon, people are going like, oh man, this shit is great, and Game of Thrones is back to the way they were. Well, we're gonna see how that shit ends. Thank you for your question. Moving on to the third question of today, coming from user appropriate underscore boss underscore 639. Honest opinion. What do you think about girls who have OnlyFans? I think that girls who have OnlyFans are a very interesting breed. I don't know. That's the first thing that comes into my mind. It's a very interesting breed. I think that it is more power to them that they want to do that and make money, and they have the opportunity to reach so many fucking people. So yeah, if you can make your money, do it. But like, I also find it sometimes it's the freedom of speech versus the freedom of consequence type argument, where it's just like, well, more power to you that you're doing it and that you're making your money that way, but you should also not be surprised if people are going to look at you differently because, and of course, this is mostly assuming that they're using their OnlyFans for quote unquote OnlyFans content, right, and not just whatever. So I'm more so skewing towards like lewd and 18 plus content, right? So yeah, to me that would be like, hey, I'm fine with them and I would be friends with them. I don't see what, but like if my girlfriend was doing it, I would just be like, I don't know if I like that. I'm a pretty jealous type to begin with, so for me definitely that wouldn't work. So yeah, that is the issue for me, realistically speaking, where I just am not confident in myself enough to be like, okay, you're fine, you can fucking show your tits to a guy online, and it is a bit fucking weird for me. It is a bit weird. On the other hand, it's like it's digital, so it's there's no physical contact happening. But anyway, yeah, no, to me it doesn't really gonna work for me. But again, for the women, more power to you if you can make your money that way. But again, don't start whining and complaining that people look at you differently because you are selling your body for money. Even though, again, sex work is work, but it's one of those fucking weird things. So going back to the question asked by user appropriate underscore boss underscore 639. Honest opinion, what do you think about girls who have OnlyFans? I think that it is more power to them, and they're using their opportunity that they're having to make as much money out of it as possible, because that's of course what you're going to do, because in the grand scheme of things you're only going to get less attractive as long as time goes on, right? So them getting as much money out of it right now is a very smart idea. I do want to say that yeah, you shouldn't be looking surprised when your naked photos are online and your future employer is going to see them and not hire you because of it. I do think that that is going to be less and less so of an issue the more people do so. But yeah, I think that you shouldn't be free of consequence. You shouldn't be getting angry about people, looking at you differently or treating you differently, because this is a choice that you've made. And sad as it is in some cases, you chose this path. Hopefully you chose this path and not forced upon you. But yeah, that would be my answer to you. Thank you for your question. Moving on to the fourth question of the Ask Reddit already, asked by user Panda's Paw Draws, and they ask, serious. What's your favorite song that tells a story? As you all know, and if you've listened to this podcast, you have to know this. If you're just started to listen, you're gonna learn now. I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift lately has made a couple of songs that are full-on stories, that are legit stories. So for me, the answer would be The Last Great American Dynasty. It's such a fun road trip, especially hearing it for the first time, where she tells a story about this American, like a rich American family, a guy that marries a girl, and then that girl ruins the whole family, and basically everything falls apart for them. And then they have a house, and then the house gets sold, and then who buys it? It's Taylor Swift. It's such a fun story again, especially hearing that the first time is such a fun, it's such a fun journey that you go on. And it is such a cool ending to hear like, oh, and the person who bought this town was me. And I go like, oh my fucking god, Taylor Swift, what the shit? And it's such a fun thing. Another song that I really like that has a great story is Nobody, No Crime. And the funny thing is that both these stories were written in the pandemic. So that's really fun. The first one comes from Folklore and the second one comes from Evermore. And Nobody, No Crime is such a fun song as well, where it's about this man who murders his wife, and then that wife is then like Taylor's best friend, basically, and then she tried to figure it out, and she knows like, hey, this guy has done it because XYZ, but it's not provable that he did it, and then allegedly, she kills the man, and then his new lover basically gets blamed for it because she has like an insurance policy taken out and stuff like that. Like, it's a fucking trip that you're going for. Nobody, No Crime. So that would be my second answer. So going to the question, as by user Panda's Paw Draws, what is your favorite song that tells a story? I'm gonna say two. The first one is The Last Great American Dynasty, and the second one would be Nobody, No Crime, both by Taylor Swift. So if you have not heard them, please listen to them because they are some fun stories and journeys you can go on. Thank you for your question, Panda's Paw. Moving on to the fifth question of the day, coming from user sassy_Steph_. What TV show's intro song is an absolute banger? And I'm gonna keep this nice and short. It's Rizzoli and Isles. That fucking shit, every time it pops on, it starts fucking banging. And the funny thing is that song, and I don't know what the fucking song is called. I'm gonna look it up real quick. The song is called I'm Shipping Up to Boston. And it's a song that a whole bunch of UFC fighters use. And actually, it was used by Rodriguez in the fight that I watched this weekend. So it's a really fun thing that is their song. And every time I hear it, I just go, oh, that's a Rizzoli and Isles song. It's such a fun thing to listen to. So that would be my answer to you, sassy_Steph_. What TV show's intro is such a banger? And I would say Rizzoli and Isles because they're using their song I'm Shipping Up to Boston. Thank you for your question. And now moving on to the final question of the day, of course coming from the MID Asshole subreddit, asked by user Jason_Barrett1029, and they ask, am I the asshole for telling my wife that leaving her used pet in my brother's place was inappropriate? My wife and I were invited to my brother's 31st birthday. He's single and lives alone in his apartment. So to give you the heads up, my wife and him don't get along so well, but can be civil enough to sit at the same table. So we went and had dinner and talked, and everything was going well. No argument, nothing after my wife went to use the bathroom. Later my brother went to use the bathroom, then came back looking pissed. He kept giving me and my wife looks, but I didn't know what was going on till he pulled me aside before we left and told me that my wife had left her used pet in his bathroom. I was shocked and didn't know what to say because this felt highly inappropriate. He said he didn't appreciate what my wife did and that it was a sign of disrespect towards him. I apologized profoundly and said I didn't know about it. He asked me to speak to her or she wouldn't be welcome in his place anymore. We got in the car and I asked my wife about it. She nonchalantly said there was nothing wrong with what she did and that my brother was being ridiculous. I kind of flipped and told her it was very inappropriate for her to leave her used pet in his place even if it was in the bathroom and in the trash can, because it made him feel uncomfortable. She yelled asking what she was supposed to do, and I told her that she could have taken it with her and threw it out outside, not in his bathroom. That's my brother's place, and he told me how he felt about it. She yelled at me calling my brother an incel and me an asshole for getting in her face about it. She said she needed to use the bathroom, and it's not like the pet was visible since she dumped it on the trash can. At home, we still argued about it, and she kept on calling me and my brother names. She is currently not speaking to me and avoiding me entirely. Regardless, I feel like it's his place, and he gets to express what makes him feel uncomfortable in it. And there's a small edit, so I'm going to read that now as well. I can't give info or expand on what was seen, but I can tell you that the trash can does not have a lid. It's not like one of those trash cans that has a lid on the top and you can push on it. What I want to emphasize is that the fact that as a guest, you should respect people's homes and not argue about what makes them uncomfortable. He said it made him uncomfortable, and that should, in my opinion, be acknowledged. So, Jason Barrett, I'm going to say this weird thing that, hey, women's health product is fucking normal, bro. Like, I kind of am agreeing with her that, yeah, your brother is an incel and he's making an argument about nothing. Like, if she had left the pad, like, on the fucking bathroom sink counter, whatever the fuck you want to call it, like, then I would be like, okay, there is a problem. Or if she fucking pissed all over the floor, then I would be like, hey, what the fuck is going on? But she used the pad and then threw it away in the garbage. Like, what the fuck is she supposed to do? Like, you're saying, like, she should have taken it and thrown it away? What the fuck, dude? And also, if the brother has such a big issue with it, he should have just stepped up and be a fucking man. Like, if you're gonna be such a little bitch about this shit, about bitching and complaining about, oh, there's a pad in my fucking bathroom and it is my house and I don't want this shit here. It's just like, dude, just, if you had such a big problem with the pad being there, you should have just gone up to again, the sister-in-law, I guess, his sister-in-law, and just be like, hey, I am not feeling that comfortable with that thing being there in my bathroom when it's like open and out there. So I would appreciate if you next time could throw it away in the kitchen or whatever. Just said like that, then the whole problem would have not been a problem, because then it would be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to make a fuss about it, so I just threw it away in the fucking can, which is for trash, right? There is very little that she can do in this situation. Take it with her? That's such a weird thing to me to do. In my opinion, and this might be me, like, I am very much a person that just sucks shit up, and it's just like, oh man, I would be like, man, even though it might have made me feel uncomfortable in the beginning, it's like, how many times is this going to happen? Maybe once or twice a year? Like, it's a very weird occurrence for this to happen at this guy's place, right? So it's just like, fucking suck it up. She threw it away in the garbage, and what the fuck are you supposed to do then? And again, if you have such a big issue with it, the brother in this case, just fucking go to the girl and be like, hey, I don't like that shit being in my bathroom, so you could use this trash can or that trash can or whatever, so that I don't have to deal with it, whatever. But like, she used a fucking trash can, bro. She threw it in the fucking trash. Why the fuck is there a trash can anyways? Huh? Why the fuck is it there? To throw shit away. So, going to the question, asked by user Jason_Barrett1029, am I the asshole for telling my wife that leaving her used pad in my brother's place was inappropriate? Yes, because it wasn't inappropriate at all. It made your brother uncomfortable, and I get that, but it's just like, she threw it in the fucking garbage. She didn't fucking leave it out in the open, fucking blood all over the fucking walls, pissed on the floor. No, she just fucking threw something away that was supposed to be thrown away, and your brother's making a fuss about it, and you're siding with your brother because you're both fucking idiots. And that's my answer to your question. Jason_Barrett1029. Thanks for your question, and good luck with your wife. And that's going to be it for this week's episode of the Didn't Ask podcast. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, because both places give you the ability to leave a rating. So please give me 4 or 5 stars. Please make it 5, because that will help the show out tremendously. You can find wherever this podcast is found on anchor.fm/didn't-ask-pod. That link will be in the show description. Over here, you can find all the hyperlinks to your favorite podcast services like Podcast Addict, like Pocket Cast, like Spotify, like Amazon Podcast, like Google Podcast, like Apple Podcast. It's fucking everywhere. If it's not, please let me know. You can do that by going to that anchor.fm website. Like I said, mentioned in here before, it is in the show description. Over here, there's a button that says message. If you press that, you get the ability to record a voice memo for me that I can then play on this right here podcast. But again, like I said, you can also use it to say that, hey, this podcast isn't available on this and this platform. Then I'll do my best to get it on there. But if you have a personal question, you can use that button as well. And then I can use your voice memo that you recorded in the show. If you don't want your voice to be heard on this right here show, I can totally understand that. Just say that up front or somewhere in your message. And then I'll just read your question out myself so I can still give you the answer that you're looking for, but you can stay anonymous. Well, I'll be back next week. And in the meantime, in between time, you can see what I'm watching on track.tv. That link will also be in the show description. Over here, you can see all the TV shows and movies that I'm watching, sometimes even while I'm watching them. So you can watch along with me and maybe even ask me a question about those, because that would be fun. Okay, that's enough blabbering for me for today. I hope you had a good time and I hope to see you back next week. Thanks for listening and goodbye.